The pressure's ratcheted up in the NFL playoffs, and as the Seahawks are going to find out on Saturday, they got plenty of players that are new to this experience. Who faces the most pressure heading into the divisional round rematch with the 49ers? We're going to be taking a deep dive here on Matchup Wednesday, Locked On Seahawks.
You are Locked On Seahawks, your daily Seattle Seahawks podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Greetings, 12. This is Corbin Smith, host of the Locked On Seahawks podcast, your daily Seahawks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Glad to be joined, as always, by my co-host in crime, Rob Rang, and a special thanks to all the 12s who are listening in. Thank you, as always, for making Locked On Seahawks your first listen 5 days a week. We greatly appreciate it, whether you're in Boca Raton, Florida, or tuning in from Sumner, Washington. Thanks for making Locked On Seahawks and the Locked On Podcast Network #1 podcast network. Seahawks and 49ers gearing up for a grudge match, divisional round style at Lumen Field on Saturday night. And as we do each and every week, we're going to be diving deep into the matchups to watch. And even though these teams basically played 10 minutes ago, there will be some different matchups that we are going to be diving into heading into this playoff game, including a potential superstar returning from injury for San Francisco for this grudge match at Lumen Field. All brought your way courtesy of our friends over at Prize Picks. Download the Prize Picks app today and use the code LOCKEDNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Now for your lead story here on our Matchup Wednesday edition of Locked On Seahawks. The Seahawks gearing up for their first playoff game in 3 years. Divisional round home game, 14-3 record, #1 seed, hosting the 49ers, the same team they just beat 13-3 in Santa Clara back in week 18. And Seattle, the veterans certainly are trying to downplay the significance of the game in terms of how the youngsters are going to handle it. But you got a lot of players playing in their first playoff game, and you got some coaches that are going to be experiencing some new things as well for the Seattle Seahawks. Keeping that in mind, Rob, let's talk pressure, the pressure cooker that is an NFL playoff game. And some of these guys have been in playoff games and have not played well. Some played in a bunch of playoff games early in their career and haven't played in one for 4 or 5 years. You never know when you're going to get that next chance or if you're going to get that next chance. So there's an incredible amount of pressure in just knowing that there is a win or go home setup here. You win the game, you get to play one more game. You lose, you're done. It's locker room cleanup the next day. So that is what is at stake here. So much pressure on both teams going in this game. And the team that can handle that pressure is going to be best equipped to advance to the NFC Championship game. Keeping that in mind, Rob, who's under the most pressure for the Seattle Seahawks going into this game, or at least from our viewpoint, our Hawks' eyes, who is under the most pressure going into this game wearing blue and green?
Well, I mean, if you're going to give me the mic, sir, first, I got to go with the low-hanging fruit, and I got to go with the quarterback, Sam Darnold. I think also we should mention the offensive coordinator, Clint Kubiak, who, of course, has been reported that he has been, widely viewed as a head coaching candidate by several different teams out there. If Darnold or Kubiak or both lay an egg in this primetime game, then there's going to be an awful lot of Seahawks fans out there that are going to be very, very concerned. If Seattle wins and Darnold struggles, again, very concerned about is Sam Darnold going to be the guy that might be able to win the NFC Championship game? Same thing with Clint Kubiak, of course. If the Seahawks, even if they win, if they struggle to put up points against injury-ravaged San Francisco 49ers defense, especially one that struggles to get any type of pressure on the quarterback, then I think that, you could see Clint Kubiak's opportunities to be a head coach, at least during this hiring cycle, with all of the John Harbaughs of the world, Mike Tomlins of the world, even though he has said that he does not have any interest in jumping back into coaching immediately. I just think that there are some worthy candidates out there, and his opportunities could go up in smoke. overnight, essentially. So to me, those are the two guys that have the most pressure on them. That said, if they wind up having spectacular performances, then I think that they could have as many or more interest, not only in terms of the coaching opportunities for Clint Kubiak. Sam Darnold could suddenly be the everybody's hero in Seattle and across the NFL landscape.
Obviously, Sam Darnold, you mentioned the low-hanging fruit, but that is obviously the easy selection considering he played in his first playoff game last year and didn't get far off from being sacked double-digit times by the Los Angeles Rams. They were hoarding him that entire game, and he got that monkey off his back beating the Rams a few weeks ago and then beating the 49ers in Week 18 to help Seattle clinch the NFC West. He has been able to get rid of some of those demons, but this is another one. This is that third demon here. Can Sam Darnold play well and lead his team to a win in a postseason game? And I love you mentioned Clint Kubiak because he was number 2 on my list as well, just because of the stakes at play here for him personally. And I think this game boils down to Kubiak versus Robert Saleh more than it does Kyle Shanahan against Mike McDonald. I think that the Seahawks offensively have to be more efficient putting points on the board than they were in this game a few weeks ago. They won by 10, but they should have scored more than 13 points, a lot more than 13 points. Kubiak's got to have the game plan, and he's got to get his guys in positions to be able to execute so they are more efficient in this game. And then on the defensive side of the ball, I'm going to pick – I'm not even picking on them. I just think two guys that have not played in the playoffs very much in their NFL careers. They started with the New York Giants. I think Leonard Williams and Julian Love have an incredible amount of pressure on their shoulders in this game because they have had such few opportunities in their careers to play in the postseason, and now you're a number 1 seed. You are in the driver's seat to have the playoffs run through Seattle, and there's such big keys to this defense with their veteran presence. Even though they haven't played in a ton of playoff games, they have played in them. They have experienced that and haven't experienced it a lot, but they have that experience on their side. And who knows, especially for a guy like Leonard Williams, who is now 31 years old, like, hey, is this my best chance to win a Super Bowl that I'm ever going to have in my career? That puts pressure on players like that who are older players. And even Julian Love with the injuries he's had this year. Like, you're looking at guys in 7th season, like these players get banged up pretty quickly and you don't know when you're going to get your next chance. So I think on the defensive side of the football, both of those guys would stand out to me. I don't think the rookies have anything to lose. This is their first opportunity. And I'm going to throw DeMarcus Lawrence in that cap too. How many times has he been in the divisional round with the Dallas Cowboys and the Cowboys couldn't get it done? And I'm not blaming him for that, but if his team gets bounced to the divisional round again, you're looking at a 33-year-old. Am I ever going to get another chance like this as well? So I think for those 3 veterans in particular, originally playing in the NFC East, I don't know that they're going to feel that pressure out there because they are vets, but I think they have unique circumstances because of their past histories in the playoffs or not getting to the playoffs in the case of Leonard Williams and Julian Love.
Yeah, I think the fact that they are veterans, that there is some pressure for all the reasons that you just said. Are they going to get another opportunity here? So I'm going to mention a couple of also, fairly elder players on the Seahawks as well. One of them, just because he popped off on social media, that being Uchenna Nwosu. And basically, look, I think that, Uchenna Nwosu hasn't won a Super Bowl yet, either. He is a player who has struggled with some injuries. And of course, he made the comment to the 49ers star linebacker, Fred Warner, who is attempting to come back and play in this game, not this week, essentially, or not yet. I'm paraphrasing here, but basically just the fact that he made some public comment, I think that has put the spotlight a little bit more on him. So I do think that is someone who has put some pressure on himself to perform in this particular football game. And then I would mention the oldest player on Seattle's roster, Jason Myers. As you mentioned before, the Seahawks only scored 13 points this last time in Santa Clara. And it should have been 19 points if Jason Myers hits either of the, if he hits the 2 field goal opportunities in which he missed uncharacteristically against San Francisco, if this does come to a very close game, the fact that he has made more field goals than anybody else in all of the NFL, people will forget that in the snap of a finger if he doesn't perform up to expectations in this game. And not only as a field goal kicker and PAT kicker, but in being the accurate kicker on kickoffs. He had he messed up one of those, unfortunately, in this last performance against the 49ers. He has been money much of this season. But again, it's all about what have you done for me lately when it comes to the postseason. And so the 34-year-old Jason Myers has some pressure on his shoulders as well.
When we come back, we got to gear up for this game coming up on Saturday. And the only way we know how to do on Wednesday, it's time to dive into the key matchups. Seahawks offense, 49ers defense. That's coming up next here on our Wednesday edition of Locked On Seahawks. New year, new systems. This is the time when a lot of us look at the messier parts of how we run our business and think there has to be a better way, and there is. Streamlining your communications is one of the quickest upgrades you can make, and that's why today's episode is brought to you by Quo, spelled Q-U-O, the smarter way to run your business communications, because when your team is reachable, organized, and communicating in one place, you're not just working cleaner, you're creating more opportunities to connect with customers. I love how simple Quo makes everything, including your whole team being able to get calls and texts from one shared business number so nothing gets missed. It works right from your phone or computer, and you could even keep your existing number. And with Quo's smart AI tools automatically logging calls, summarizing conversations, and highlighting new steps, details never slip through the cracks. It's no surprise Quo is the #1 rated business phone system on G2, trusted by more than 90,000 businesses. Make this the year where no opportunity and no customer slips away. Try Quo for free. Plus, get 20% off your first 6 months when you go to quo.com/LockedOnNFL. That's QUO.com/LockedOnNFL. Quo, no missed calls, no missed customers. Hey guys, the draft pick positions are set, at least for the non-playoff teams, and so many teams are looking for their franchise QB. Ever wish to become a pro QB getting drafted first overall by the Raiders? Well, now you can. There's a mobile game just for you called Ultimate QB Football Legend. In this game, you step into the cleats of a #1 draft pick quarterback, and it's your job to lead your team to greatness, to turn a failing franchise into a dynasty. This is the #1 QB career mode on the mobile app store, and it introduces the most realistic environment with full career control. You can sign contracts, train and upgrade yourself, build chemistry, evolve your teammates, give input to your GM on roster moves, play the actual games in 2D, and rise through the ranks to become a pro football legend. You'll deal with all the ups and downs of a QB career, from rookie nerves to playoff drama and every choice that shapes your journey. Ultimate QB is totally free to play, has no ads, and works 100% offline. Perfect for when you want to sneak in a quick game or two on the go. Just head on over to ultimate-qb.com. That's ultimate-qb.com, or search the Ultimate QB in the App Store. And we've got something special just for our listeners. Use the promo code Locked On, all caps, in the game store to get a free boost at the start of your career. Ultimate QB, football legend QB1, it's your legacy. Welcome back to the Wednesday edition, Locked On Seahawks. I'm your host, Corbin Smith. He's Rob Rang. A special thanks to all the 12s who are tuning in, and thank you, as always, for making Locked On Seahawks your first listen 5 days a week. We greatly appreciate it. You live your team all year round. Why not dish it out with the Locked On Seahawks year-round plan? Join the Everydayer Club today and get Locked On Seahawks with no interruptions, members-only Discord access, and more. All for just $5 a month or $50 a year. Go to LockedOnSeahawks.supercast.com or check out the link in the show notes to learn more. Seahawks 49ers round 3 coming up at Lumen Field. The stakes once again are really high, even higher than last time when there was an NFC West title and the #1 seed hanging in the balance. Now it is a trip to the NFC Championship Game for both the Seahawks and the 49ers. And Rob, as we do each and every Wednesday, it is time to dive into the matchups. And you threw out this name earlier in the show, and I think we need to step back a moment and consider the possibility. I don't think he plays on Saturday. The player may disagree with that. Kyle Shanahan might disagree with it, but Fred Warner coming back to practice this week, exactly 3 months after undergoing surgery on a fractured and dislocated ankle. That is supposed to be a 4-month to 6-month recovery. It's been 3 months, and he's practicing this week. If Fred Warner is able to play in this game and he's healthy, that changes the complexion of how the Seattle Seahawks handle their offensive game planning. He's that talented of a player. We know what he can do in coverage with his movement skills, his blitzing ability, run stuffing. He does it all. And at the same time, you're going to want to find ways. You want to be smart about it, but you want to find ways to test that ankle. Watching a few clips of him running, he looks good, but he also looks like he's still favoring that leg just a little bit. If he does play in this game, I think Seattle tries to test him a little bit early, particularly in the run game, just to see how he moves to the direction of that injured leg. That is going to be something to watch if he plays. If he doesn't play, you're looking at Eric Kendricks, Garrett Wallow. Maybe they have D. Winters back this week. This is a very banged up position group that's had some issues being able to defend both the run and in coverage.
Yeah, I think that, look, football can be a very complicated game, and sometimes it can be very simple. And I think that the team that runs the ball more often and likely runs the ball for more yardage winds up winning this game. That certainly has been the case most of the times that the Seahawks and 49ers played. It was the case each of the last 2 games in the regular season. In week 1, the 49ers ran the ball, 36 times for 119 yards and had Christian McCaffrey catch another 9 passes for 73 yards. Seattle was limited to just 84 rushing yards. They did get a touchdown, but they ran the ball 26 times for 84 yards in that game. And then, of course, as we've talked about so many times, Seattle just ran the ball right down San Francisco's throat in week 18. 39 rushing attempts, 180 yards, while limiting San Francisco to just 12 rushing attempts for 53 yards in that game. I just think that regardless of who the 49ers have at linebacker, that you have to run the ball for Seattle's offense to be as effective as it can be, to take advantage of the 49ers, whether it be Fred Warner, whether it be D. Winters, whether it be Garrett Wallow. You mentioned Eric Kendricks as well. I just think that is going to be something that Seattle is going to prioritize. Now, if it is Fred Warner, and I saw some of those clips myself, I thought he looked fantastic. And frankly, I'm rooting for Fred Warner to be on the field. For one, I think that he is an unbelievable football player. I always want to watch the best of the best. That's the same reason why I was rooting for Trent Williams to be on the field. Look, I think that Seattle is going to attack Fred Warner if he is on the field. I think the easiest way to do so is to try to get some runs to the outside to see if he has that speed, to see if he can cut back against the grain, to adjust to Seattle's running backs, and then definitely also be throwing the ball to your running backs. Sprinkle in some plays to the tight ends as well. Get him working in coverage. Now, I'm not saying necessarily target him significantly, but I do think that you have to test him at least a little bit. Whether he is healthy enough to play in the game, I think that he has proven some of that already. It's just whether or not that he has the if his teammates are going to be able to play off of him quite as well, because the linebacker position, he has got to be able to kind of move people around. I mean, he wears the green dot, of course. And so it's not just about his ability to play physically. We know he's a smart player, but also it would be moving parts for a San Francisco defense that has struggled just 2 weeks ago, again, against Seattle in defending the run.
And speaking of taking some shots, one thing that stood out in that Week 18 game that surprised me a little bit going into that game, especially with the pass rushing issues San Francisco's had, is that Seattle did not take very many of those plays downfield. There were not many 20-plus yard throws even attempted by Sam Darnold. And some of that was that the game plan was correlated to getting the ball out quickly. I thought Sam did a really good job of doing so. But this has still got to be, I think in this rematch, you've got to find a way, especially with the way they ran the football last game. San Francisco, I think, is going to be more geared up to trying to slow down Ken Walker III and Zach Charbonnet. I don't know that they make it a full scale thing where they're consistently bringing an extra defender up, but I think they're going to have to do that some. And at some point, Seattle's got to be able to make them pay for that with Jackson Smith and Jigba and Rashid Shaheed, maybe Cooper Kupp. I'm looking at the ability of that receiving core that was so good winning downfield most of the season. Second half, even this win streak, it hasn't been as prominent. Some has been what teams are doing to them, schematically taking that away. But you keep running the football the way that they have been. If they can keep that going in this contest, like to me, one of the big keys for Seattle is being able to take advantage. I think Upton Stout's had a great rookie season, but he's also given up a lot of yardage, and he's a smaller corner. I think Renardo Green is a guy that JSN can take advantage of. Lenore, he's had issues with penalties going against Jackson Smith and Jigba. He wants to keep talking big, but it feels like Seattle should be able to get some ideal one-on-ones out there to be able to get some of those big plays downfield. And I think they're going to need a few of those in this game to be able to advance the NFC title game.
I think they certainly might, just because I expect San Francisco to be much more aggressive on the offensive side of the ball than they were in the Week 18 loss. And so if that's the case, and the game declares itself as being a little bit more of a shootout, then I do think that Seattle is going to be very aggressive, if necessary, and attacking San Francisco's corners. Look, I think the San Francisco's corners are a pretty solid unit. But at the same time, I think that there can be some plays made against them. And I think that Seattle might attack the San Francisco safeties as well. With all the focus on guys like, Fred Warner and Trent Williams and the wide receiver Ricky Pearsall, the starting safety, Jair Brown, has been limited and out of practice, actually, the last couple of days. And that means it could be another rookie, Marcus Siegel, who is going to wind up starting alongside Malik Mustafa for the 49ers. I thought that the Eagles should have attacked Siegel a little bit more, just because of the fact that he is rookie. He's a good player, but I think that Seattle has the tight ends. I talked about Elijah Arroyo perhaps being a hidden weapon in this game. Seattle has not used their tight ends much in the two games previously against the 49ers. Only 2 combined catches from the tight end position in the Week 1 game, 4 combined catches, 2 of those from Eric Sauberts, and the other 2 from A.J. Barner in the Week 18 victory. I think that if this game does change by 99.9999%, the way that Mike McDonald kind of talked about, I think Seattle attacking with their tight ends could be one of the ways in which it changes. But again, if it does wind up being a little bit more of a shootout, I agree with you, sir. I think that Seattle is going to take advantage of JSN, certainly, and then also Rashid Shaheed's speed over the top for a big play opportunity.
And I think if the Seahawks are going to win this game, one other thing that needs to be replicated from Week 18, in particular in the run game, their guards and their center have got to be feasting up front. And look, I loved CJ West. I loved Alfred Collins coming out of the draft. Those guys made some plays. They were also getting pushed around a little bit. I felt like Seattle was the instigator. They were the ones setting the tone physically, particularly the interior of their offensive line. I thought Jalen Sundell, we mentioned it after that game, I thought he was the best player on the field for Seattle in that game. He was just absolutely dominant, both athletically and physically, blocking in the run game. I thought Gray Zabel made some fantastic blocks. I thought Anthony Bradford played really well. They need that group to step up to the occasion again and set the tone. Let that run game come to life. Provide the pass protection for Sam Darnold so he can take those shots. And I think San Francisco, they've got some good young players in that defensive line in the interior. They don't have anybody that's taking over games. They don't have anybody that is going to be drawing game plan concerns. Those guys up front, you need to show how improved that interior offensive line is once again under the brightest of lights. And I think if that happens, Seattle has a real good chance to win this game fairly handily.
Yeah, and that's obviously, again, we talked about Seattle having to run the football to be effective. I think it could be really interesting to see the way that Charles Cross comes back at the left tackle position, because, Josh Jones, I thought, did a terrific job in terms of the wide zone blocking, getting out in space. So many of the big runs that we saw from Seattle over the last 3 regular season games, it showed Jones making some terrific downfield blocks. That has been at times something that Charles Cross has done. He has been very, very good in pass protection. And so I do think, similar to what I mentioned before with Fred Warner, again, one of the NFL's absolute best, but it takes time to be able to kind of get back into the football shape, so to speak. I think the same thing here with Charles Cross. Just the continuity along the offensive line, to me, has been one of the absolute strengths for the Seahawks. Now, of course, that's been challenged a little bit with Charles Cross getting back onto the field. The 49ers, as we talked about so many times, are absolutely dead last in all of the NFL in terms of sacks. But they did get 2 sacks in that Week 18 loss against the Seahawks. They got a sack and, of course, a critical forced fumble in the Week 1 victory over Seattle. So whether it be in the run game, whether it be in pass protection, Seattle's offensive line has got to play to the level that we saw 2 weeks ago if this is going to be a runaway type of fashion for the Seahawks victory.
When we come back, we are going to flip the script. Seahawks on defense, looking to stymie the 49ers once again. We're going to look at the key matchups on that side of the ball for Seattle against their division rivals in the divisional round. That's coming up next here on Matchup Wednesday, Locked On Seahawks. This episode is brought your way by Home Chef. As the new year gets going, a lot of people are trying to simplify their routines, and dinner is a big one. Between busy work days, cold winter nights, and packed schedules, having an easy, reliable dinner plan, it makes a huge difference. And that's where Home Chef comes in. Home Chef takes the stress out of cooking by delivering fresh, pre-proportioned ingredients right to your door with easy-to-follow recipes that actually taste great. They're rated #1 by users for other meal kits for quality, convenience, value, taste, and recipe ease, and it's easy to see why. Meals come ready to fit your schedule. 30-minute recipes, oven-ready trays, or quick lunches. Recipes are simple but feel elevated, even restaurant quality, with dishes co-created by chefs like Gordon Ramsay, and it saves you time and money. Home Chef customers save an average of $86 per month on groceries. For a limited time, Home Chef is offering my listeners 50% off your first box, free shipping, and free dessert for life. Just go to homechef.com/lockedon. That's homechef.com/lockedon for 50% off your first box, free shipping, and free dessert for life. Must be an active subscriber to receive free dessert. If you've ever hired someone who looked good on paper but wasn't the right fit, you know how important that is. When you want candidates who truly match what you're looking for, trust Indeed sponsored jobs. Indeed is all you need. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other sites. Indeed sponsored jobs put your post at the top of the page and help you reach the right candidates faster. Instead of struggling to get your job post seen, Indeed sponsored jobs helps your listing stand out and reach all the quality candidates quicker. Sponsored jobs boost your post to the people who are the best match for your role, and that makes a real difference. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs posted directly on Indeed are 90% more likely to report a higher than non-sponsored jobs. Spend more time interviewing candidates who check all your boxes with less stress, less time, and more results using Indeed sponsored jobs. Listeners of this show get a $75 sponsored job credit to help give your job the premium placement it deserves at Indeed.com/LockedOnNFL. Just go to Indeed.com/LockedOnNFL right now and support the show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring, do it the right way with Indeed. Welcome back to Matchup Wednesday. I'm Corbin Smith. He's Rob Rang. A special thanks to all the valued 12s tuning in to our latest installment of Locked On Seahawks. And thanks for making our podcast your first listen 5 days a week. Seahawks 49ers getting ready for a divisional round Saturday night grudge match at Lumen Field. And as we do every Wednesday, it's time to dive into the key matchups to watch. And, you know, I know it's really felt like it was 15 minutes ago that we finished Matchup Wednesday in Week 18. That was the last game that we covered, Rob. But, you know, it's interesting after watching that game. You know, you have a little different perspective on what matchups may or may not be advantageous for the two sides. And at the same time, there's going to be ones that are always the same. And I think anytime you're playing San Francisco, Kyle Shanahan's offense, especially without George Kittle now being out for the rest of the season with the Achilles injury, it starts and ends with Christian McCaffrey in the backfield. Seattle held him to 23 rushing yards in that game in Week 18. They swarmed after him. I'm not saying they need to replicate that. I find it hard to believe that he's going to be held down that much in this game. But Seattle's front seven, can you set the tone with your hitting, your ability to swarm to the ball in droves and not miss tackles on receiving opportunities for McCaffrey as well, limit the yak. They did a phenomenal job in both those areas. The linebackers are going to have to match that effort once again. Ernest Jones and Drake Thomas, the way they did in the first matchup, if the 49ers can get some tread going in both those aspects, running the ball with McCaffrey, getting the ball in his hands as a receiver, that really opens up the entire rest of their offense.
No question about it. When we started off today's show and you asked about, who are some of the players that have the most pressure on them, I almost went to Seattle's starting inside linebackers, Ernest Jones and Drake Thomas, just because of the success, as you mentioned, that Seattle had against Christian McCaffrey, as well as Brian Robinson in that Week 18 victory in Santa Clara. I mean, the bar is set so high now that, can you match that? And we all know what a dominant player that Christian McCaffrey was. Certainly the Philadelphia Eagles found that out as well. Just his ability, not only as a runner, but as a pass catcher as well. Clearly with George Kittle out, with Kyle Juszczyk, as good of a football player as he is not somebody who is very likely to make somebody miss and go the distance the way that C-Mac can. It remains to be seen who of the 49ers wide receivers might be available to them. So again, I think that the number one matchup to watch in this particular football game is definitely slowing down Christian McCaffrey. If you can do that and make Brock Purdy beat you, you have a very good chance of doing exactly that, beating the 49ers.
And then I think, as you mentioned with the receivers, I'm actually going to take a step back and look at this from more of a micro approach. The quarterback, Brock Purdy, going up against Seattle safeties. It didn't seem like Purdy was able to take many of those gambles downfield in that game in Week 18. Some of that was the pass rush preventing those opportunities. There wasn't time, and he was getting put in a position where there was pressure bearing down on him quick. And some of it was that the 49ers they looked slow. They did not have anybody on the outside that was threatening Seattle with their speed. The X factor here is Ricky Pearsall. If the former first-round pick out of Florida can play in this game, this guy's a legitimate 4-3 guy with blazing speed. We saw the big play potential he had in Week 1 when these teams met at Lumen Field. Getting him back, it adds that speed, that missing component to the receiver group, and it opens things up for everybody else. It puts more pressure on the safeties to take away those downfield possibilities, and also the corners have to be on their P's and Q's there as well, because we saw him beat Reek Woolen a couple of times in that season opener. Woolen's a 4.28 guy. So Ricky Pearsall is that X factor to watch here that could really open up that opportunity. At the same time, if receivers aren't getting open, we saw it last week in Philly, that Brock Purdy, he's got a 3+% interception rate since he came back from his injury. He's been great throwing touchdowns, but he's also thrown a lot of turnovers, a lot of interceptions. Seattle safeties could make him pay, especially with Kobe Bryant being back in the lineup with his ball skills. If he tries to sneak a ball in downfield and guys aren't creating separation. So I'm watching that very closely, that QB versus safety. And oh, by the way, he's got to also account for Nick Eamon-Warry as a blitzer, which was a real problem for San Francisco's offense in Week 18 as well.
Yeah, no question about it. Seattle had 8 quarterback hits in Week 18, 3 sacks against the Philadelphia Eagles, a team that has, as gifted of a defensive tackle in Jalen Carter as there is in all of the NFL, in my opinion, some terrific edge rushers as well. They only had 3 quarterback hits, 1 sack, and that was, of course, in Philadelphia. So I do think that getting some pressure on Brock Purdy and the playmaking defensive backs that Seattle has makes this a really interesting matchup. And I love the fact that you mentioned Ricky Pearsall. I think anybody who watches the 49ers much is going to just acknowledge the impact that Trent Williams, Fred Warner might have. But Ricky Pearsall just is like, people just kind of throw him in there like, oh, yeah, that Ricky Pearsall guy might have an impact. Hell, he could have a massive impact in this game. As you acknowledge, he beat Reek Woolen. Very few people have beaten Reek Woolen all season long. He certainly has had his share of penalties, but he was actually beaten at times by Pearsall. And so if Pearsall is able to create some big plays over the top, That's just going to create that many more passing opportunities for Jawan Jennings, for Demarcus Robinson, who don't have Pearsall's speed to be able to kind of eat in that short to intermediate level. And so I do think that is an interesting matchup. And the safeties in particular, I mentioned the Philadelphia Eagles before, and of course they have 2 all-pro corners in Quinyon Mitchell at 2 picks against Brock Purdy, and Cooper DeJean as well at the other cornerback spot. 2 really good players. I think matches up very nicely with Seattle's quarterback room. I don't think that Philadelphia, however, has the caliber of safety play that the Seahawks boast. But with Kobe Bryant coming back onto the field, like we mentioned with Charles Cross, like we mentioned with Fred Warner, again, talking about an injured player, does that have some ripple effects along Seattle secondary? We know that Kobe Bryant is a ball hawk. We know that he has been a pretty reliable open field tackler. Is he as reliable of open field tackler as Ty Okada has proven himself to be over the last several weeks, or as Nicky Memori has proven himself to be? So I'm very interested to see how Seattle brings Kobe Bryant back onto the field, and if Brock Purdy does try to get cute in the deeper passing attack, if Seattle safeties are able to make him pay.
Those are all really good points. And at the end of the day, I think the biggest difference in this game potentially for Seattle to deal with that may make things trickier, Trent Williams being back in the lineup at left tackle. Now, watching the film, I thought he was good, not great against Philadelphia. I thought he had an okay game. He is not 100%. He's still been limited at practice this week. That hamstring is not all the way healed. But even at 70 or 80%, Trent Williams is better than most of the tackles in the NFL. And we know he still has that physicality to him. I always love to watch Leonard Williams against Trent Williams. They will move Williams off edge some, and we're going to see that matchup. And DeMarcus Lawrence, he and Trent Williams have had some incredible matchups when the Cowboys and 49ers dueled in the playoffs over the years. And so I'm not watching both tackles in particular. I'm watching Trent Williams' side. I want to see Seattle test him some too. Is he going to be able to – this could be – well below the 100% threshold with that hamstring injury.
Yeah, that to me, again, is going to come down to how the game declares itself a little bit. And what I mean by that is if Seattle is going to really test Trent Williams, as you basically said, Trent Williams at 80% is better than most NFL tackles. And I think that Seattle could take the safe approach and just basically line up Leonard Williams and DeMarcus Lawrence against Trent Williams and just try to, match Seattle's stars against Trent Williams and just try to equal him with the physicality. Just because of their size, their power, they might be able to kind of match him and basically make him a bit of a non-factor. Now, that might be making Leonard Williams or DeMarcus Lawrence a bit of a non-factor in this game, but I'll take that trade all day long because of what Trent Williams can provide. If Seattle's going to get aggressive, then I think that you have to use some speed rushers here because this is a pulled hamstring we're talking about with Trent Williams. And of course, the speed rush on the outside is going to force him to push off a little bit more. That could complicate his health at this point. That's why I think that going back to your point before about Seattle being aggressive on offense, if Seattle can get ahead of this football game, force the 49ers to throw the football, Trent Williams going to have to be in pass protection that much more. It could be that much more difficult for Trent Williams to be able to hold up the entire game. If the 49ers, on the other hand, are able to run the football effectively, keep this game close, then I don't know that Trent Williams is going to have as much struggles here. So to me, again, this is going to be how the game declares itself. I personally trust Seattle's defense enough just to basically line up Leonard Williams and DeMarcus Lawrence opposite him and attack on the other side and try to force Brock Purdy to beat you and make this a little bit more of a slugfest and perhaps a 13-3 kind of a game. But again, if the 49ers are able to create some points early on, if they score 14, if they have 14 points at halftime or more, then I do think that Seattle's going to have to get much more aggressive, blitz off that left side and try to get Trent Williams favoring that hamstring just to try to kind of essentially knock him out of the football game and certainly try to get some pressure on Brock Purdy. He is not the same quarterback. Similar to Sam Darnold, not the same quarterback if you can get a little bit of pressure in his face.
And I also think some twist stunts could be something the Seahawks mix in too, because the change direction quick like that can be tough on a guy that is dealing with a less than 100% hamstring. So I'm curious to see how Seattle handles some gamesmanship here going against Trent Williams and test him a little bit, at least early on this game, to see where he is at. As always, you can follow me on X and Blue Sky at Corbin Smith NFL. You can follow Rob at Rob Rang. Make sure to subscribe to Locked On Seahawks on YouTube and wherever you listen to your podcast to make sure you don't miss a single episode. Coming up tomorrow, crossover Thursday, Locked On Seahawks, Locked On 49ers. Second time in 2 weeks. Who would have thought? You guys are going to think Brian Peacock is joining the Locked On Seahawks team with how much we've had him on the show. We are going to dive into everything you need to know heading into this NFC Divisional Round rematch. Make sure to listen in and enjoy the rest of your Wednesday. Go Hawks.